Hi, and welcome to Feature Fridays. My name is Guy Bartram. I'm Director of Product Marketing in our Cloud Provider Business Unit. And today I'm joined by Joerg and Brandon Gordon. So Joerg, welcome back. Do you want to do a quick introduction for those who haven't seen you before?
Yeah, sure. I'm Joerg. I'm a technical product manager in VMware's Cloud Provider team.
Thanks, Joerg. And Brandon.
Hi, Brandon Gordon, technical marketing for vRealize operations.
Excellent. And that's what we're here to talk about today, vRealize operations. Now, we've done a few vRealize operations Feature Fridays in the past, but we focused very much on the vRealize instance on the customer prem rather than, on the service provider premise rather than vRealize Operations Cloud, which is the SaaS incarnation of vRealize operations. And for service providers who don't want to have, the footprint of vRealize to manage and all the life cycle that goes along with it, it's a great solution. And we wanted to have this Feature Fridays, Brandon, so we could really talk about some of the benefits of vRealize Operations Cloud, other than it obviously being a SaaS service, but some of the benefits that providers can reap from delivering reporting services to their customers and how it would look in vRealize Operations Cloud. So Brandon, do you want to just take us through, what is vRealize Operations Cloud at a high level?
Sure. Well, first off, if you're familiar with vRealize Operations, this is the SaaS version of vRealize Operations. They're both based on the same code base, so the capabilities are essentially the same. There's a few nuances here and there to make it a SaaS service, but for all intents and purposes, it is the same product, just in a SaaS form factor. So if you're not familiar with vRealize Operations, it covers a lot of the troubleshooting, the operations, capacity, costs. So a lot of the operationalization of a cloud, things you do to manage and monitor a cloud. I can get into specifics on some of the capabilities if you like. We can dive into some of them. I know. As we talk through.
Yeah, sure. Great. I mean, let's go to you. What are sort of use cases have you seen with cloud providers using vRealize Operations Cloud so far?
Yeah, so these typically align to the different business models that service providers have when they rent out or offer infrastructure services to their tenants. So with these different business models, we have these shared cloud environments, typically with VMware Cloud Director or a Cloud Director service. But there's also a lot of service providers that offer dedicated private cloud business. So they create vSphere clusters and a dedicated vCenter instance for one tenant, and then give pretty much the administrative access to the tenant, and then the tenant themselves can manage typically networks, deploy virtual machines, and so on. And especially for these dedicated private cloud offerings, vRealize Operations Cloud is a very good fit, because as a service provider, you don't have to run and operate VROps for yourself, but you still can offer a lot of, or the whole value add services for vRealize Operations to these tenants.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So sorry, go ahead.
That is a great point. I would say it really takes away a lot of the administrative overhead of provisioning, manage, maintaining vRealize operations. That is let our SREs handle all of that maintenance for you. That's one of the big benefits, I think, especially when you're looking at managing multiple tenants. It helps a lot.
Yeah. In addition to that, of course, there's always that use case for a service provider to use it for their own operations. So really to support their operating teams. Now, for vRealize Operations Cloud, that now pretty much, I think, depends on if you are rather, a data center builder and you run your own data centers, where you very likely would rather go for perhaps an on-prem version of vRealize Operations if you already have the infrastructure. But on the other hand, vRealize Operations Cloud can complement that. If, for example, you need some data center resources that you rent from either other service providers or from VMware as part of a VMware Cloud on AWS or the other hyperscalers offerings, and then you can use vRealize Operations Cloud to complement these and add the monitoring and operational capabilities to these other data centers as well.
And what does that involve, the onboarding of, because obviously vRealize Operations is vRealize Operations Cloud is a SaaS solution, so there's no deployment of vRealize operations into the customer environment, but you still have to deploy something to do that remote collection.
Yeah, so you deploy what's called a cloud proxy. So you would deploy that in each of the clouds that you want to monitor. So if the partner wanted to monitor their own cloud, they deploy it in their own data center. Or if it was monitoring a customer's environment, you would deploy the cloud proxy in the customer's environment. And one great thing about the cloud proxy, if you're familiar with vRealize operations, it actually works and communicates through NAT, and it'll work over the internet. So it gets rid of a lot of the complicated networking requirements that can come into play as well. You just deploy the cloud proxy, and as long as it can communicate with vRealize operations cloud over the internet, it's just a single port, TCP 443. Very simple traffic, and it's all encrypted. So it makes it really nice, really, really simple.
Okay. So if I'm a cloud provider today and I've got, sorry, go on, Joerg.
Yeah, and you can have, I think, multiple cloud proxies, like sending data to the same vRops cloud instance. And that's, again, a good use case if you have distributed data centers in different locations, or for that scenario where you offer vRops cloud to your tenant and they might have a cloud proxy in the dedicated private cloud that you offer to them, as well as perhaps a cloud proxy in their on-prem installation, and then they can see their whole infrastructure in one single vRops instance.
And that brings up another great point. One of the limitations that some customers or partners have run into is like the latency limitations. So if you have if there's a global partner that has presences on basically in every continent, being able to monitor and manage those centrally has been a challenge because of latency. Now that we support up to 500 milliseconds in latency, so you're pretty much anywhere in the world. You can monitor from a single instance, as long as you're within the scalability limits. But you can basically monitor anywhere in the world now, and you can also deploy multiples in the same location and set it up in a highly available configuration. So if you want to have, if one of the cloud proxies goes down, you can have it fail over to another cloud proxy. So we also have that high availability perspective as well. So.
Okay, and it's an MSP solution today, so it's available to our cloud provider partners under the MSP contract that they might subscribe to, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So if I'm a cloud provider today and I've got lots of private cloud instances, this is a great solution to just be able to upsell monitoring into those private cloud solutions, drop a proxy into there and start collecting the metrics, and then either use the metrics going to a single location that a single instance of vRealize Operations Cloud that I may be as a cloud provider using to troubleshoot their environment and make sure I'm delivering the right service quality, or to provide to the tenant in their own environment another instance of vRealize Operations Cloud, so they can then monitor their own environment and manage their own environment potentially.
Yeah, exactly. So typically, when you want to provide vRealize Operations Cloud to your customer as a service, you would have a separate instance per customer. That way, the customer can have whatever level of access you want to allow them to have access. You can give them, essentially, as admin as you can get in the service, or you can restrict it where they're just view only. It depends on how you want to structure the service. There's a lot of flexibility in that as well. So that's for typically like a dedicated cloud. You would have a dedicated vRealize cloud instance as well, and it makes it a lot easier to manage because of that. But the other use case, like you were saying, the partner using it for managing their own cloud, then there's less restrictions because it's only basically the employees of the partner that are logging into it, so it can monitor across any tenant, multiple tenants, and then you can create reports and stuff going across those. So it really depends on who it's going to be the main consumer. If it's the partner that's consuming it, just one instance just for the partner is sufficient. But if the tenants are actually logging in and using it, that's where you want to have dedicated instances for each of the tenants.
Yeah. Okay, so I know I'm going to be kind of pushing the boundaries here, but I'm going to ask the question because people will be wondering, what about VMware Cloud Director? How does this feature into Cloud Director and Cloud Director's roadmap?
So you can actually, the management pack for Cloud Director is available. So when you go into vRealize Operations Cloud, you just go under integrations, and then there's a repository tab. You can see all of the management packs that are available today, and Cloud Director is one of them. So you just install it and then go and configure it. It's if you're familiar with vRealize Operations on-prem, it's the same. So it gives you the ability to monitor Cloud Director, understands all the constructs of Cloud Director, and then kind of merge that in with the vCenter data, so you can get a really great view of the cloud.
Yeah, that scenario, of course, is more interesting for a shared environment, which is typically the use case for Cloud Director anyway. The only thing that we don't yet have that's currently being developed is the tenant app integration for chargeback metering and to show back that data from vRealize operations into Cloud Director.
Yeah.
And if for any partners watching this are interested in participating in the beta, feel free to reach out. We can help hook you up.
I think that I mean, when I said the Cloud Director support, I wasn't kind of thinking about monitoring Cloud Director because I know vRops has been doing that for a while, but I was thinking more around if I wanted to publish reports to my tenant and I wanted to use tenant app connecting through to vRealize operations, pulling that data back. What would that look like? So there is a plan then to integrate this into Cloud Direct on-prem. Obviously, Cloud Director Service, I imagine that's part of the same plan. Do you guys know?
Yeah, so there are these different combinations between Cloud Director and vRops, and then Cloud Director and Service and vRealize Operations Cloud. And we do plan, I think the highest priority for now is the integration with Cloud Director Service, so that you have as an asset-light service provider where you don't run your own infrastructure, you still get the full capability of our management stack, and then we will add the other combinations later to the product.
Okay, but it's not. I guess there's nothing you're stopping people from developing some sort of really lightweight extension to actually then point through to URLs and reports that you're publishing in vRealize Operations Cloud.
Yeah, that's absolutely possible. I think you still have the same dashboard sharing or report sharing capabilities as with the on-prem vRops. And then from a VCD perspective, of course, you have all the extensibility with the UI plugin to provide these links.
Yeah, I would just go and create any kind of reports you wanted to share with the customers or the tenants, and just set them up to automatically email. So you can set it up to be completely automated. Just look at their particular org in Cloud Director or their dedicated vCenter, whatever construct makes sense for the tenant, and then set up the report to automatically email. That definitely can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Brandon, what about? Sorry, go on.
That I would refer back to I think some time back we had a couple of sessions about monitoring as a service, where you can offer more than just a pure like availability or infrastructure monitoring with the different management packs that we have for vRops Cloud.
Yeah, there are a lot of management packs, including the ones from the True Visibility suite. So there is a lot of stuff that can be monitored. It definitely encourages you to look at the repository that's in the product. I know a lot of the True Visibility suites from the infrastructure side, like the server monitoring ones, were made so they were actually included with no extra charge. So there, like I said, there's a lot of coverage. It's not just vSphere. We can monitor a lot of stuff. So the list is very long. I won't bore you with going through the whole list. I can flash up the repository if you want to see it whenever I do a demo. I can show you just a sample of what's available. And if something that you do need that is not available, we can just open an SR, and we can get SREs to start looking at certifying and making whatever the additional management pack available.
Yeah, that's a very important aspect actually of vRealize Operations Cloud, because as a service provider, all these different integrations and management packs that we have in vRealize Operations, they allow you to offer insights or offer your tenants insights in their workload, typically with very little overhead on either side, from a service provider to set it up and from a tenant to consume it. And on the other hand, the that level of detail also allows you really to differentiate from hyperscalers or from your competition, because with the hyperscaler offerings, it's typically a lot of effort for a tenant to set up stuff like database monitoring or get the relation between the different objects all set up properly. And with vRealize operations, you get most of that pretty much out of the box.
Okay. So Brandon, talk me through how this would work with multiple tenants. If I was a service provider and I had, a number of large tenants, large private cloud instances, and they had their own instance each, how do I manage the access and kind of, the single view that I would want to see across the board?
Yeah, so vRealize Operations Cloud, those will be available through the CPN. So you'll have each of those instances available through there. But what you can do is in the instance that you have as the partner, you can install this management pack. I forget the exact name. It's like the Federation for MSPs. And when you install that management pack, you can actually federate the data across all of the tenant instances into this one instance. So you can get this bigger picture, and you can see what's going on across all of your tenants. And you can create dashboards and reports and everything that span the entire footprint of the environment, even though you may have multiple vRealize Operations Cloud instances. So that federation management pack, I think, is really, really a key enabler for you to be able to manage multiple instances at scale.
How's the authentication integrate to your on-prem authentication identity providers?
So this actually goes through the CSP portal. It uses CSP for authentication. So it connects basically from one vRops Cloud instance to another vRops Cloud instance. So the instances all talk to each other. So you would just create an API token with the appropriate privileges in the tenant instances, and then you just add that vRops Cloud instance into the federation instance.
Okay, cool.
And if I remember correctly, you even can, to a certain level, configure which metrics you actually want to receive in that central instance, not to reach any scale limit. So I think all the fine-grained, like 20-second performance utilization data of each virtual machine, you likely don't want to have aggregated, but things like alerts or just some warnings and stuff like that you really want to have in a single place, you can configure that pretty fine-grained.
Yeah, so there's actually a configuration file that you can go in and modify and tell it which objects and which metrics you want to bring in. So, by default, it brings in vSphere objects and it doesn't bring in virtual machines. The reason it doesn't bring virtual machines is to help with the scale. You don't want to have a significant amount of objects in one instance. Typically, you can get enough reporting from higher level objects. You can get enough detail to know when you need to go and troubleshoot down to like an individual virtual machine. But the thing is, you can add in, like we were just talking about true visibility, some of those management packs. You can have it bring in some of those metrics from other objects that are not supported natively out of the box. It's just a modification of a config file. Say bring in this object with these metrics, and then it just magically shows up.
I love a bit of magic. That's great.
Right.
Okay, so just one more kind of aspect that I'm thinking about, and then maybe we'll cover some of the run through of the solution. But what about escalations? Because I could have written quite a lot of custom stuff on my on-premise instance to kind of do various rules and thresholds around escalations of alarms and alerts. What is supported in terms of it's a SaaS product, so how much of the custom stuff can you do?
Basically, everything you're able to do on-prem, you can do with vRealize Operations Cloud as well. So the one that's really popular is webhooks. So we have a generic webhooks capabilities. So you can set those up to send the webhooks in whatever format. You can actually customize the payload to send it to whatever system and whatever format you want. That one's pretty flexible. It supports a lot of stuff. There's out-of-the-box support for ServiceNow. You can install, there's a management pack for vRealize Orchestrator if you want to run orchestrator workflows. You can send SNMP traps. You can send emails. There's a lot of flexibility. And each of those you can actually configure to either go outbound from vRealize Operations Cloud servers. So basically come out over the internet, or you can tell it to go through a cloud proxy. So like if you like the webhooks, like if you want a webhook to go to a server that's on-prem, you just tell it to use the webhook, have it send from this cloud proxy, and then it will basically doesn't have to go over the internet. It can go directly to a private IP. So there's a lot of flexibility in there. I mean, there's a lot of options, but the fact that you can run it on-prem as well through the cloud proxy is very helpful. So you don't have to expose everything to internet to be able to do alerting and stuff.
Yeah, that's super powerful again for that dedicated private cloud offering where you offer this kind of management for the tenants, so they can create their alerts and alert their teams or users of the workloads, no matter if these workloads are running on-prem in the data centers or if they are running in your cloud offering.
Yeah, I think
exactly.
that's kind of really a key thing, right? I mean, just to be able to have that flexibility. And I guess with each new release, there's new stuff coming as well. Brandon, what's the current release that vRealize Operations Cloud is at?
So vRealize Operations Cloud doesn't really have version numbers per se. We basically say when we release it, the date. And I think the last one we had was late January was the last update. And so, there's not really an official version number. So that, and it makes it a little harder to track, but basically all the tenants all the instances would be essentially on the same version. When they roll them out, they start rolling them out, fairly quickly. So within a week or two, all the instances would be upgraded. And speaking of upgrades, there is notifications. I'm sure there's a lot of questions about that. You will get notification beforehand saying, your scheduled maintenance window is, whatever time on whatever day, and you have the ability to contact the SREs to reschedule it if you need it on a different time. But you do get warnings and notifications when there's maintenance that's going to be scheduled for that. They're really great at minimizing the downtime and in doing these updates. It's actually a lot less downtime for vRealize Operations Cloud than you would experience on the on-prem product. Depending on the size of the instance, on-prem could take you, it could be an hour or more to do an upgrade. And in vRealize Operations Cloud, they're saying around 15 minutes at most downtime. So it's very, very short in comparison. And every release they're working on making it shorter and shorter. So it's really great. Some of the tricks they're able to do behind the scenes with doing these updates. It's pretty neat.
So you're basically following the kind of the VMware SaaS products. The way we release SaaS products is we kind of release bits of functionality in specific versions that are kind of released every sort of 3-6 months. There's a rolling thunder cadence with new stuff coming.
Exactly.
One of the new things I think we talked about a couple of weeks ago was the sustainability piece, right? Was that one of the new dashboards that came in?
Yeah, sustainability. Let's see. Can I point to it
that one
over here?
Yeah, that's the one.
it's reversed. It's kind of hard. So yeah, the sustainability capabilities. So this is actually looking at how green your infrastructure is and some of the recommendations you can do to improve your carbon footprint. So really, really cool stuff in that. I think we're gonna have another session that we actually dive into that a little more in depth. So it's a lot of cool stuff, and I know they have some really great plans to improve that as well. So it's pretty awesome.
Okay, cool. So I guess one of the other questions maybe on service providers' minds, if they got vRealize Operations now already, is there a migration path to VRC?
So so today what you can do is there's a built-in utility in vRealize Operations that's bulk export of content. So this will export dashboards, reports, views, alerts, users, custom groups, roles. I mean, all the basically anything that you go and configure within vRealize Operations, you can export that into like one big zip file, and then you can take and import that configuration into vRealize Operations Cloud. So, and you can basically reset up everything just like you have already. The one thing it doesn't do is bring over the data, but this brings over all of your configuration, and even your accounts. It'll you can export your account configurations and import those as well. You can secure it with with password to make sure that the passwords don't get leaked. But that it really helps with that with that transition. Just to be able to back up and restore the configuration. And that's also customers will use that for like a mini backup. Like if because it's very lightweight, there's an API call you can go and request the export and save that somewhere. So if you have to go and rebuild it, you can just re-import it and have everything back. So just thinking out loud here, the partners could do that as well. Like if you have a standard set of content that you want to create, that you want to provide to your tenants, you can create a standard set of dashboards and reports and such, and export those into a single zip file. When you onboard a new customer, you can just import your custom content in there, and makes it very simple. So you don't have to go and export and import to make all the other instances the same.
Yeah, that's nice. You could align that perhaps to your private cloud offering and the infrastructure within your private cloud offering, and how you want to present that to your customers. Actually, that's actually a really nice feature.
Yeah, and it's all API driven as well. So there's APIs for that. You could use things like CodeStream if you wanted to automate the process. There's some options there. And I know APIs is really important, especially when you're dealing with large instances. So there is APIs available for vRealize Operations Cloud. It's basically the same API that we have on-prem. It's just the authentication is different because it goes through the CSV portal. But once you get your API token, using that token to make all the other API calls, they're all the same. So there's very little refactoring that you would have to do if you already have any automations or anything that connects into vRealize Operations. You just need to switch out your authentication, and you should be good to go.
And just seeing your screen behind you is very kind of VMware colors and VMware view. How brandable is this for a partner?
Currently, it's not. You basically can do dark theme, which is what I have in my background, or the light theme. That's really that's all that's available today. We can't do any branding.
Okay, but logos at all? Logos available?
Not today.
Okay.
No.
Right. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I can't think of any other questions off the top of my head, really. Is it time to kind of have a little look around?
Sure. Yeah, I can give you a quick little tour.
Okay.
All right. I've shared my screen. Hopefully you can see it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So like I was saying before, this is based off the same code base as vRealize Operations on-prem. So it should look very familiar to you. It's essentially the same product. And typically, I'll point out the things that kind of would be, I think, more important, looking from a partner perspective. This workload optimization, this is one where you go in and you can balance workloads across clusters. So say you have multiple clusters, or maybe one of your customers has many clusters that can run the same workloads. You can go in here and create basically a collection of clusters and automatically balance the VMs across the clusters. So you don't have one cluster running hot on CPU and the other one running hot on memory. If you can do some shuffling around, you can kind of even it out and actually fit more more balanced workloads. So that's kind of the goal here. But you can define things like your operational intent, like whether you want it to pack them really tight on one cluster before it goes to the next, or just balance the workloads out. You can control based on business intent. That's setting tags. Like I want my Windows VMs to be on this cluster, my Linux VMs to be on that cluster. Anything tagged as Oracle to be on this other cluster. You can do things like that as well. So you can start creating these business rules as well. So it helps a lot with placement of virtual machines.
And that doesn't impact Joerg, like a VCD placement policy isn't going to be overall.
Yeah, typically you wouldn't use this on a VCD environment. This would be more for a dedicated cloud or a customer's on-prem environment.
Okay.
Right sizing. This is a really important one, especially for running the very optimal cloud. So this is actually going and using this AI engine that looks at takes the historical utilization of a virtual machine and projects that into the future. And it says, this virtual machine, based on, looking forward, it thinks, it only needs this many CPUs or this much memory in order to maintain its performance. So What's one of the differences between vRealize operations and a lot of other solutions is this is forward-looking. So it's based off of that projection in the future. So it's not only saying based on the past, it'll fit on in this size of virtual machine. This is actually looking in the future. So if it's growing, it knows that it's going to need more in the future. So it can find those undersized virtual machines or virtual machines that are growing and may need more capacity. So that's one of the big differentiators. And in here, you can actually go and take action on these. You can resize them right here. You can set up a schedule. You can actually automate this on a schedule as well. It's like it's like every Friday evening, go through and right size all the virtual machines. You could set up that. You can do you can set up where a lot of filters and stuff. So there's a lot of flexibility in the scheduling piece.
Brendan, can service providers use create business rules around this to kind of inform a salesman that it's time to pick up the phone to the customer type thing?
So yeah, you can get you can set up emails or reports, dashboards, etc. that you can actually get. I think report is probably the easiest one. Set up a report, you get it, and like here's the list of virtual machines that could be right sized. And typically, I mean, this could be something you could offer as a service. Getting these right sizing recommendations and providing to the customer. That's something that I think a customer would appreciate, giving those kind of recommendations.
Yeah.
And then the scheduling piece is nice as well if you want to go and actually automate the process. The assessing capacity. So this one's really good at looking at the capacity of clusters. So it knows when your cluster is going to be running out of capacity. It gives you that proactive warning. Like here, let me find one that looks a little more interesting. Like here, it's predicted that this cluster is going to run out of memory based on allocation in 135 days. So it looks like we had a big reduction in workload, and now it's growing again. So now it's seeing its growth trend and projecting that out in the future. So this is great for getting that proactive warning, so when you need to go buy hardware. Mm-hmm. So this could be, like I said, this could be for the partner to look at their own infrastructure. This could be looking at a Cloud Director environment, or it could be looking at a customer's on-prem. This is really helpful for being able to to track that and monitor what's going on. You can see other things like the capacity remaining, how many VMs will fit in the cluster. So we can see here, this is looking at my capacity remaining. You get this nice chart down here where it says here's how much capacity I have remaining. One thing that's confusing about this, can be confusing about this if you don't know, is all these numbers here are based on a projection 3 days in the future. So it's actually using that to kind of smooth out the peaks and valleys that happen. There's a little explanation of it here if you want to do some reading. But the nice part here is it gives you that idea of what's going on. The virtual machines remaining is really a great one to understand the capacity, because it's easy. Like when you show it to a customer, it's easy for them to understand. You can fit 5 more virtual machines, similar to what you've already deployed. That's a very easy thing to understand.
Brendan, when you're looking at this from a VCD sort of monitoring pack point of view, are you able to see things like the resource pools on the tenant level and understand their actual used capacity against their reservation?
You can. I don't have Cloud Director in this demo environment. Otherwise, I would show you. But yeah, you can. You can see all the Cloud Director constructs. So so from the vCenter side, you can see the resource pools. You can see the VDCs and stuff from the Cloud Director side, and it kind of brings it all together. So you can see the vCenter constructs and the Cloud Director constructs and how they relate to each other. So yeah, it definitely gives you that visibility.
That's really interesting. Joerg, one of the things I find talking to cloud providers is, VCD's got some really clever like allocation models, and we see still like a lot of reservations being done, hard reservations when they're probably not necessary. This would be a great tool for kind of understanding what could change from reservation to a different sort of allocation model, and potentially, obviously not have any impact on the performance.
Yeah, that helps the service provider to understand the actual utilization of the workloads from their tenants, and then allow them to better adjust the allocation models in VCD to what the customers really need, and typically can drive really a certain amount of higher density on the hosts, which as a service provider is always typically something that you want.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep, exactly. Let's see, show you a couple other things here. Reclamation is another big one. So this is actually finding resources that you can actually reclaim. So this is where you can get capacity back or potentially save money. So we have several different kinds here. So powered off virtual machines. So these are VMs that have been powered off for a while. It depends on you can configure and adjust all these thresholds. So we see here we got powered off virtual machines, and again, I can go and delete these, or I can exclude it if I don't want to get notified about it, or I can schedule this. So just like we were talking about the right sizing, we can do scheduling of these as well. So I can schedule the deletion of these powered off virtual machines. One that's great for scheduling is snapshots. Looks like this one doesn't have any. Over here, here's some snapshots. So I can go in and find these. Like here's an 85-day-old snapshot on this virtual machine. So I can find these snapshots really quick. I can see how much disk space it's consuming. I can go and delete the snapshot right from here, or like I said, I can schedule it. So there's a lot of flexibility in this as well, and this is great at finding opportunities to save capacity. So this is it, it's really important, especially when you try to run an optimal cloud, to try to minimize your waste as much as possible. You want to get the best bang for your buck, right?
Absolutely, it's that small margin. That's what you're looking for. The magic word, margin.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, speaking of cost, we have cost here. So this is more from the partner's perspective. So this is looking at how much it costs to actually run the cloud. Actually, let me show you a better page here to see the cost. So this would be for the partner to understand how much they're spending on their infrastructure to run the cloud. So this is not typically something you would show to a tenant. But what you can do here is look at the total cost of ownership, and you can see how it's broken down based on the capacity, what your capacity used or capacity remaining, cost based on cost drivers. So you can see what your most expensive cost is. Looks like in our environment, it's storage is the most expensive piece. You can see it broken down by data center, and we can see all of our savings opportunities, and then anything that we've done to actually realize some savings. So any actions that we've taken to save capacity or money, we can actually report on those as well. And you notice we have other clouds supported. So this is just showing on-prem, but we have VMware Cloud and AWS, Azure VMware Solution, and then these native public clouds. These are coming in from Cloud Health as well. So this is really great looking at from a cost perspective. We'd also support Google Cloud. So we support looking at the cost of Google Cloud GCVE. It's just not showing up here, but the system actually calculates those costs as well. So
that's going to be really useful, man. We're bringing in Cloud Direct Service support for Google Cloud, in the first half of this year, and we're going to see many more of these clouds coming online, available to our service provider partners to use. So this is going to be something where they can actually have that hybrid management tool across multi clouds. It's a fantastic solution for them to get a single picture. Yeah,
exactly. There's so much stuff in here. I mean, I could spend hours upon hours. So I don't want to bore everybody.
Can you do the troubleshooting workbench? Because that is I think a pretty cool thing for service provider operators, as well as for vSphere administrators or workload VM owners on the tenant side that might not have super duper much experience on vSphere side.
So I don't have anything prepared. I'm just looking for something blindly here. So I don't know if it's going to be anything interesting. But so I just picked a virtual machine. It just happens to be my jump box. So I can go in here and say, somebody's complaining. There's some problem with this virtual machine or this host or any object. It doesn't matter. It can be anything. They're saying there's some problem with it. Don't know what it is. So I can go in here and pull up the object, and the system will go and find stuff that looks interesting. So I can control the scope here. So saying, how far, like how far out I want to go. Do I want to go look up? Do I want to look down? Do I want to include additional siblings? And what it does is now starts telling me like events. So these are things that happened related to this object. So it looks like there's a Skyline alert, talking about something about the management network for the hosts. That's probably not that interesting. These are all host related stuff from Skyline. Yeah, it doesn't look very interesting. Property changes, there was nothing. So anomalous metrics. So anomalous metrics are basically things that that have changed drastically. So you can see, looks like memory granted has changed. There is oversize. Looks like this is a custom group. Yeah, this is not very interesting. Here we go. So it looks like disk space use jumped up a little bit. So there was something that caused disk space utilization to change on my jump box. So something must have happened. And then you can also do things like, change my time range to potentially find something else. Like here's some data store alerts. So maybe it was maybe there was something wrong with the space on the infrastructure side. But I know this is probably a horrible example, but the idea is you can go and find any object and then start looking at things that have been detected that are potentially related to it. So this is all using, there's AI analytics that's actually going behind this. So dynamic thresholds, if you're familiar with those. So if a metric is acting different than it normally does, looking abnormal, it'll flag those as well as anomalous. So abnormal is looking different than normal. Anomalous means it has a substantial change within the time range. So slightly different, but two different technologies looking at that. We can look at other things like alerts. So these are alerts related to the object. We can dive into metrics. So we can go and find like, let's see, I'm gonna look at CPU demand, and then I can go in and look at things like correlation. So I can say, I want to look at other metrics that correlate with this metric. So I'm looking at CPU, and I can say, I want to look at other metrics for this object, for peers. So this, other VMs on the same hosts, or within the scope that I've defined. So I'll just do self metrics and see if I find anything interesting. I know I'm just doing this blind, so hopefully there's something.
Yeah, there was before in the workbench view, there was the property changes column as well. I think that is super helpful, especially again when you have tenants configuring virtual machines and then the provider operators who have to operate the underlying infrastructure, because that very likely can easily identify some changes that went on in the environment, rather than having a lot of different iterations with finger pointing of who did what
exactly
to cause the
so things like changing CPU's memory on the virtual machine would get flagged. Powering off the virtual machine, powering it back up, things like that. Other events and things that happen to the virtual machines would also be identified. So it's like I say, it's really awesome when you're going to troubleshoot a problem, especially when it's not something that you don't necessarily know what the problem is. You just, somebody saying something's wrong, and you just kind of have to go and poke around and figure it out. This helps you find something that could potentially be interesting. So you don't have to go look at 500 different metrics to find something. So there's a lot of power in this. It also has events. So this would be like your CPU memory changes. So you could see things like, looks like this is just a bunch of Skyline alerts for this one. But like I say, if hardware changes happened, you'd see that on the timeline here. And then logs. So this is the integration with Log Insight Cloud. So if you're using Log Insight Cloud to monitor either your environment or the tenant's environment, you would see logs for those objects showing up in here as well. So there is that integration built into the product between those two products. So it's really nice to be able to see logs and metrics in the same view for and have them correlated with each other.
Hey, Brandon, speaking about integrations, what about vRealize Network Insight Cloud?
Yes, there's actually integration between vRealize Operations Cloud and vRealize Network Insight Cloud. So there's, let I'll find, there's a MOAD demo that we do. Let's see. Shopping cart. Here we go. So this is an application that's been discovered by vRealize Cloud. So we've automatically added the tiers. Oops. Come on, let's try that again. We've added the tiers here. And then the virtual machines related to those objects. So now I can have that network view that's discovered the application, then the applications show up in vRealize Operations Cloud, and then I get the same sort of view. I can look at alerts in the context of this application. So I can say, any alerts, these could be alerts coming from vRealize, et cetera. So it looks like we're running out of disk space on one of the virtual machines in this application. So that's really awesome to be able to do that as well. Be able to see that integration between the products. So alerts from vRealize will come in as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I do like the previous view you had as well. The deviation from normal is like a fantastic thing to be able to have just automated. You don't have to provide any rules around or anything. The AI is just going to sit there and look at whether this is deviated from normal behavior over a specific period of time.
Yep.
And that can
they can find that stuff a lot quicker and easier than you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really good because you set up environments, you don't know necessarily what is the baseline activity, unless you're going to be looking at it all the time. So yeah, very useful. Yep. All right. Well, listen, man. I think this is great. There's obviously tons of functionality in here, Brandon. So
I know there's so much.
Yeah, we're going to have to leave it for today, but we are going to do another session on the sustainability piece and another session on assessment and migration as well. So we'll understand more about how cloud providers can kind of onboard with vRealize Operations Cloud, how it can make it easier to help with migration. And obviously the sustainability stuff, right? Everyone needs to make the data centers as green as possible. So it's really important that providers give their customers visibility on their sustainable footprint within the data center if possible. Folks, any final thoughts?
Yeah, again, we have seen a lot of different functionality and super helpful functionality that vRealize Operations Cloud can offer. So always keep in mind these different scenarios where you as a service provider use them for your own operation team, but also think about what you can very easily offer to your tenant, which what your tenants don't have on-prem, very likely, and which they cannot get from anybody else when you offer them these vRealize Cloud instance for their dedicated offerings, or if you do more like a managed service provider and you help them run for example, that infrastructure for the e-commerce website, whatever, then you can really create like a full package of not only the infrastructure, but there's also the monitoring for that solution, and perhaps even the like the insights reports and so on.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value-added service providers can provide, not only just setting that up, but also the skills and knowledge they have in the applications, maybe that are in production, and like using the old Blue Medora plugins for the application level details where they can be used. You get an awful lot of granularity there, and there's an awful lot you can do in terms of providing more detail to your customers about their applications. Good shout, Joerg. Brandon, thank you very much for walking us through it today, and also your insight into how our cloud providers can use vRealize Operations Cloud. And Joerg, thank you very much for your insight too. Take care, guys.
Thanks for having me.
See you.
Cheers.
Cheers.